welcome back to another episode of OHKO, a Pokemon VGC podcast. EUIC is done. Orlando just around the corner. So much to talk about today. Can't wait to get into it. My name's Sierra Dawn. I'm one of the hosts. I'm joined here by my co-host, Joe Brown. I'm still jet lagged. I'm not gonna lie. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, honestly. Last couple of days, I might not have been in Europe, but I was still watching every match, and helping out. So I was still waking up at 3 a.m. every day to watch the event. So I can. It's EUIC is a tough one to watch because if I remember, Australia or Oceania was only it was pretty much direct opposite of us. So it would start at 6:30 at night or something, and you could watch through till 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and it was fine. But and then the EU starting at 3 a.m., man, whew, that was rough, Sierra.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I my call time 7 a.m. and I'm walking out there at 6:30, full face of makeup on, drinking an energy drink, and I'm it's 1:30 where I'm at. It doesn't feel right. The others are trying to eat breakfast before they go, and I'm I physically cannot eat as much as I know I should. Yeah, no, it's great. It's despite the fact it's not as drastic of a time zone difference, it's annoying enough that it actually just feels worse.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel you on that one, but yeah, that's what we're gonna get into first, I guess. Talk all about EUIC.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it was, just watching every round, I think it was a well-run show. Obviously, there was something that happened in the first round. I'm not really sure what happened, but you could even just tell as a viewer that round one was delayed. It started 40 minutes late or something. It started at 9:40 instead of 9 o'clock, the first match. And I don't know what was going on. I think there was something with Arcanine that people were having issues with, but besides that one hiccup, I think the rest of the stream went very smoothly. There weren't, at least as a viewer, too many long pauses from my perspective. I know on your end you probably had to vamp longer than you wanted to, but even that was still entertaining,
I mean, vamping in a Pokemon tournament, name a more iconic duo, frankly, at this point. But yeah, I don't. So I didn't have to show up until 9 on the first day because I was not on the first round. And then I was getting my hair done. I honestly wasn't paying attention. I think because some people were tweeting about it, that there were some people that, even though they had submitted their team sheets, it technically didn't show up. So they got a loss. So it was kind of figuring that out. There was also printer issues for the first few hours of the day. Whether that was maybe the reason, I don't know. There was a couple of things kind of going on, so I don't know what the actual holdup was, but those would be my two strongest guesses based off of what was kind of transpiring around me.
Yeah, but I think honestly, we talked with some of our friends and just people in general, the match selection was about as good as you could possibly get this weekend. Every single round, you guys were killing it on whatever matchup you chose for the round. It was yes, that is I felt like the community agreed when you look through the pairings. Yes, that is the definitive most anticipated matchup of this round. So kudos to you and the other casters for making the right call, quote unquote, every round.
It's so funny because part of a couple of discords that is more player based, and here I am oh yeah, this matchup's hype. And then I go and then someone's stream matchups have been so dog today. You're selecting these matches. They all suck. And I'm just what? It's a mix. I don't understand. I don't I just get, and then I'm everyone's entitled to their own opinions. I think the one that really, really got me though is there was a lot of up in the airness about our win and in match, our final round of Swiss. And
was that Wolf?
And it was Wolf.
Okay.
And Wolf did not have the res to cut. We, as quickly as we could, look over things. We had already streamed Wolf that tournament. I forget who he was playing. I think it was Gomez. We had already streamed Gomez.
Oh, so you're talking about round 15 or whatever? The round right before cut? Gotcha.
Round 15. And so we had streamed Wolf. We had streamed Gomez. I don't know about Gomez's resistance, but I don't think Wolf's was good enough. Which it wasn't in the end because he won. He didn't make top cut. And then it was Edu, who he hadn't streamed at all, who literally won the world championships at the Excel Center 2 years ago. And him and his opponent, I don't 100% know if he had the res, but his opponent did. And so it was with these decisions have to be made so quickly, guys. And like, there's people in the desk, there's people in the lounge, there's people running, and we're just like, there is a very 50-50 case for either of these matchups. Like, it's not like it was clear cut, because it was still even like, should we be pulling this? Should we not be pulling this? And like the 10 seconds, like the seconds ticking down, you know how it is in the Discord. They're like, we need a matchup.
Yeah.
We need a matchup. You pick a matchup now, or we're giving you one. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So we went with the Edu one, and sure enough,
it was a good match.
Yeah. And then his opponent wins. His opponent makes top cut. So that is exactly what you want from a win-in match. And then the Wolf one, which we got criticized for not picking, it would have been an amazing match, but Wolf won and then didn't make top cut. And then we always get criticized if we do pull a win-in, even if it's a really good match,
right?
If there's technically not a stake to it. So it's just like, guys, like, just
I think those people,
all you want, just be consistent, please.
Those people are haters, honestly, because it just doesn't even make sense, because we don't have the foresight to know who's going to win each round. So a lot of times in round 9 or round 14, or in this case 15, when we're doing the streams for the win-ins, we want to choose a match that both people, that if they win, will make it. Because it doesn't make sense, as you mentioned, to have it that, oh, let's say Justin Tang versus somebody. And like, okay, well, if Tang wins, he'll make it, but if his opponent wins, he won't. Well, then it's not fair to show that match, because if the opponent wins, then you kind of wasted that slot, that prime slot of that winning in round on a storyline that's not going to be fulfilled, right? So, yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about people that complain like that, because like they're expecting you to expect the impossible of knowing which of these players is going to win the match, and like, oh, of course you know he's going to win, so he'll make it. Because like I thought with my whole soul that Edu was going to win that round, because that was my pick to win EUIC. So I was like, I was not being neutral whatsoever. Like I was rooting fanboy hard for Edu to win that, because I wanted to get a correct prediction. And then, if I like find out if he won and then he still didn't get cut, like people still would have cried about it. But like it was the right call to pull the guy that won the world championships in the Excel Center 2 years ago. Like that was the absolute correct call.
The thing is it's also opinion based. So it's like I don't get like too pressed about it, but it definitely is like, because like I do look at the criticism and I do try to be aware with the match selections. Like, okay, we are picking what could have been good winning in matches, but we didn't take the resin to proper consideration, so they couldn't make it, so therefore it's a bad match. Okay, so now we're going to take res more into consideration. We have very little time, but we'll use that time to try and figure out if they have a good enough res to cut. But then that ultimately leads to us not picking the match, which would have been the more. So it's just like, it's like a, well, damned if you do, damned if you don't type thing. And it's at the end of the day too, because it is literally all opinion based. Like you're saying it is the correct decision, and there is still some stream selections over the weekend where I'm still questioning if it's the right decision. Just more so because you never know, right? Like once you lock in the match, it's set. You do not know how good or bad the other match was. You don't know. What if like we could have pulled the wrong match and we get a 3-game banger, and the other match that would have been correct could have been a 2-0 sweep and would have been no fun, right? So like we don't know any of that information. So it's just like one of those like, man, but it's ultimately like it is what it is, right? So I do think that a lot of the match selections over this weekend, like we did get some really, really good matches. Like we got really like good players playing some kind of unorthodox things, and we got to like showcase a lot of it. So I think it was.
You got a chestnut on stream.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
And Pheasantipity. And I know Pheasantipity got like kind of slaughtered in the match.
Because they weren't running the OHKO version.
No,
the OHKO
Flavio
team version.
did go 7-2 though with the team. Flavio did make day 2 with that team. We just showcased the one round and didn't do well.
If he was a listener of the podcast, Flavio would have known the best version is the scarf spread attack version. Because like, yeah, you could click toxic because it's guaranteed Pheasantipity is a poison type, but the point or the value Toxic Chain gives you is that you can get poison while doing damage. You know what I mean? So
definitely like looking over the team sheet, because I was like, oh, it's a Pheasantipity, and I didn't look at the moveset until we were like got the team sheets ready to like do the game, and then I look at it and I'm like, It's the wrong Pheasantipity.
But he had the Heatran too. That's what I'm saying. Like, did he see our team and like get inspired by it? Because he had the Magma Storm Heatran, and that was the crux of the team was Pheasantipity Heatran.
I highly doubt, but it is a funny thing to think about. But
I do want to say, statistically, I am still the only person that has won on stream with Pheasantipity.
Yeah,
on the official broadcast. No offense, because he's a significantly better player than me. Obviously, I'm the only person. I'm the Pheasantipity master at this point, undefeated, 100% win rate.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
Congratulations! No, I did have a good giggle at that though when I saw
Terra Bug Gastrodon, bro. He was cooking that whole team.
Yeah, I know, right? I wish we could have gotten one of the matches where he won. Honestly, I felt so sad that we just saw the team like on the one time it was pulled, but it'd be like that.
I'm trying to what was the value of the bug? Because Terra Grass also resists grass, right? So what was bug helping out against that Terra Grass would not have helped? Because they're both weak to fire. They both resist grass. I guess in the moment it never came up, because when he trash slides into the bug type, I was super shocked. I didn't know it was bug, and I'm trying to figure out why you would run bug instead of grass.
That is a good question.
Because the fan art was adorable. I'll give Gastrodon credit; it looked adorable with the little bug crown. But I was just thinking, Terra Grass, you're immune to Spore, right? I don't know what the bug's doing.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm looking through trying to well, with bug, you're not weak to poison and you're not weak to ice. So you actually with the bug then you just take normal damage from any poison and then you also resist ground. And then you also resist fighting as well, which is then nice. If you've already terrestrialized, you actually just wall Rapid Strike or Sheep.
That's probably what it's for. It's for Rapid Strike, because you have Storm Drain and then Bug resist close combat.
Yeah.
Or if you're Grass, you just get hit by close combat. Okay, that makes sense.
It took a second, because I never, it ended up, the Gastrodon just kind of,
Yeah. But I swear, if Flavio won that set, when I saw the team, I saw the Heatran, and I saw the Pheasantipity, I was like, all we need is Choice Specs Hex Fluttermane, and then we could call copyright infringement. You know what I mean? Be like, he not literally, but he better thank OHKO if he had the Hex Fluttermane, but of course he did not have it. So.
Oh my goodness, that would have been funny though. That would have been funny. I think that could have been cooking too far, but I was surprised we didn't see the spread damage once.
Yeah, but could you imagine, let's say we can get Joe or Ashton or Chuppa or somebody in, what's the last regional? LA, right? And they're already they got 8 gazillion championship points. Do you think it's possible that the OHKO community could convince a top trainer to use an OHKO built team at a regional? Obviously, they didn't have input. We're not going to give them trash Pokemon. Do you think that's a possibility? We reach out to Ashton and be like, Ashton, we would love to build a team with you in our OHKO, community for you to play in LA. You already got 8 gazillion championship points.
You could win $6,000.
He'll have his input. He could be a part of the discussion.
I don't. You know what? There is definitely some people that would. I know Jesse Romola, I don't know how serious it was. Is if I get my invite before this event, I'll consider rolling up with Slitherwing. You know what?
Oh, okay.
I think Ashton at Orlando last year said if he won, he would consider. I'm pretty sure that's who it was.
Yeah, we can make 100% get a player that could use a Slitherwing team in LA or something.
Yeah, so we'll see, but I'm holding out reservations. But back to EUIC, EUIC. Looking at the winningness of it, because there's a Pokemon that you are obviously super hype about that was on this winning team.
Kind of, with an asterisk. So they cut my hot take off. So in my hot take recording, I said Trick Room was going to win EUIC, which is correct. I ended up being correct. And then they said they wanted a Pokemon too. And just because Blood Moon Ursaluna had been more popular, I was like, Blood Moon Ursaluna is going to take over EUIC, blah, blah. So I'm like half correct because it was a Trick Room Ursaluna team that Nils won with. But I will say the juniors division was also won by Blood Moon Ursaluna, so I still did get a title out of it. Yeah, so no matter how you cook it, I was correct at least that it was Trick Room's time to shine finally.
I was also right with my hot take, by the way. I said that there would be one Slitherwing at EUIC and it would do just fine. There was one Slitherwing and it went 5-4.
That's not bad for Slitherwing.
That sounds like it did just fine, right? So I was actually so spot on, it wasn't even funny. But yeah, no, this finals team, honestly, like, first off, it was Nils, who is just an incredibly strong player, playing this team, and it was just kind of like just watching him play and how he was playing this team. It was very much so like no options for the opponent, like whatsoever. Like this team was just dirty.
Sierra was like, it was like 6 turns in a row of like, it was like the old like Brady system from him and James, where it was like, oh, my fire type is in, here comes the water attack, I'm gonna bring Rillaboom. Oh, okay, now my grass type is in, now I'm gonna switch in my Urshifu into the fire attack. Oh, my water type is in, and now I'm gonna switch my fire type into the grass attack. Like, it was just like 6 turns in a row, and I was like, Tim, brother, please make it, like, I know it's tough, it's so stressful, this is like the biggest game of your life, but like, just risk it. You know what I mean? Just go for an over prediction one time. You're playing a great player. You're already up on value on the weekend, right? Like, he was about to win an international championship before he wins a New Jersey local. Like, at that point, just go all in and make the over prediction.
It's tough because it's like, yeah, we'll talk about like the finals. I'm trying to like get more structure to what we're talking about instead of our normal like rambling all over the place.
My bad.
No, all good, because I'm just as guilty. So we'll talk about the grand finals first for Masters. I'm really dive into that. That's tough because like, first off, you're against a player with like so much experience in Nils, and like no matter how good you are as a player, like nothing like replaces that experience. The amount of games that you've played, and this is actually Tim's first season.
Yeah,
like that is crazy. So to make it like past 973 other players to make it there to the grand finals is just cracked. And like he did make some reads. It was just like basically like he was making like this read, but then Nils was like, well, I'm gonna read your read and go here. Yeah. But like Tim needed to go here essentially to punish, right? And it was also tough because there was multiple turns that if you anticipate that Nils isn't going to be making the read, and then you go here, well then he just won't, and then you look maybe potentially silly because then you just let him like get something set up for free, right? So it was like, I do think like given the circumstances, like this is your first year, you're in the grand finals, like you're going up against this type of player, like you just gotta like pull out some crackhead stuff and just kind of go for it, right? Because I don't think on a fair, even footing, you're going to win that your first time just because, just like the caliber of player Nils is.
It's really tough. Like, Nils obviously has been one of the best players for like a decade now, right? He won multiple regionals before. I think he won, it was like Richmond, I want to say. It was somewhere in Virginia. Nils won a regional back in Sun and Moon. Then top 8 of the World Championships 2 years in a row in the Sun and Moon era as well. So, like, Nils for a very long time has been a fantastic player, and it just feels like I would agree with you. It's like you gotta just credit Nils more than like take away from Tim in that spot, because it is very difficult to over predict, and like the one time you do decide to break the chain and over predict, and then Nils catches you and doesn't swap the Incineroar into his Rillaboom slot, then you look silly. So that's definitely an experience factor, but like, God, it would have been so funny. Like, obviously, it'd be great in general for North America to win. But if Tim won an IC before he won a New Jersey local, oh my God, that would have been the funniest storyline of all time. Because that would mean that New Jersey is literally more difficult, or Tri-State as a whole is more difficult than Europe.
In all of Europe. That's actually insane. That's insane.
I think he got his Worlds invite too, right? I think he earned enough championship points off it, I want to say.
I'd imagine. I'm not confident enough in saying that, but that sounds about right considering the other events he's done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually as well, and I wasn't, since like I didn't have the information offhand, I didn't want to say it on broadcast, but I had also been hearing I know the two of them had matched up in Swiss, and I know that Nils had beat Tim in Swiss.
Oh.
Apparently it was a double 4-0 both
Oh,
times.
damn.
So like gotta like keep in mind too, like if you're taking that kind of beating against this player and then you now have to face up against them again, that is also then a totally different mind game, because you can say as well, like, oh, like he should have done this play and whatnot. But to get double 4-0'd, like obviously Nils must have been playing fantastic, and like I don't know. For me personally, that would have gotten to my head a little bit. Like with
For
every
sure.
single read I have to make, right? Like you cannot make a single wrong move as Tim. Like Nils could do just like whatever he wants, you know? Like he gets a move wrong, it's like, oh, LOL. Like the one fantastic spore call into the terrestrialized ogre pawn. Okay, well, if it didn't terrestrialize, he actually didn't lose anything. Like he's balling. He's having a good time. If Tim gets anything wrong, he's done, and you know you're going up against Nils, right? So there's so many layers to it.
I do think our dynamic duo that even the Pokemon tweeted about of Incineroar and Amoonguss. Did you see that photo?
I did.
They're back on top, Incineroar and Amoonguss, to get together on Nils's team, and they just work too well together. You know what I mean? Like they cover each other so well. But this was Terra Ghost Amoonguss instead of like, you know, Terra Water or, you know, Terra Fairy or Steel or something like that. So what do you think about Nils's Terra Ghost Amoonguss?
Yeah, there was a couple of Terras that were a little different, but really work with the synergy of the team. There was the Terra Ghost Amoonguss, and then the Terra Flying Porygon 2, which I liked both of these. Terra Flying Porygon 2, then you can sit next to Earthquake and be fine. I do like this from the Amoonguss, though, because then, like, first off, you can't get faked out. If you'd redirect a fighting type attack, that would actually go, like, super effective into, like, your Ursa or your P2. All right, well, now it's just not doing anything whatsoever. So I actually really like it. I think it just forces even more awkward 50-50s, which then even more so puts you in control of the match, right?
Excuse me. Yeah, it also helps you in the mirror, theoretically, because I don't know how many other Ursaluna P2 Trick Room teams were running around, but if they are regular Ursaluna instead of Blood Moon, then now you're immune to Facade, you're immune to Terra Blast if they don't terrestrialize, right? So it definitely has more value than I thought at first, because I just always inherently think like, oh, Terra Water, I stop, you know, it really helps, or like Terra, you know, Terra excuse me, Terra Fire or something like that. Like, but the Ghost makes a lot of sense. It's more than just fake out immunity, where I feel like a lot of times we see Ghost as just a fake out immunity, terrestrialization, like Grass is just a spore terrestrialization sometimes, but of course it can provide more value. But I do think the Porygon 2, that was the real winner. Even though Ursaluna won on the team, like Porygon 2 was the winner of the weekend in a lot of people's eyes, because like Lee has been promoting Porygon 2 since January. Since the beginning of Regulation F, I've had conversations with Lee where he thinks Porygon 2 is one of the best like Pokemon in the format. And you know, finally the results are catching up to it. And I like that it wasn't on I have nothing against the Dozo Tinglu P2 stall team. I have nothing against it. If you want to play it, obviously it's successful. But I like that the Porygon that won was not on that stall set. It was just a conventional Trick Room team where Porygon actually attacked a lot with Terra Blast, you know, an Ice Beam, had Choice Scarf for Shifu on it as well. I like that this was just a conventionally balanced Trick Room team with some fast options in Fluttermane and Urshifu, instead of like if the stall team won. I don't think it would be as exciting for P2's prospects going on in the format.
Well, especially too because it's going to be like met with negative feelings after people watching, because you know how people feel about their stall matches and having to watch it.
Yeah.
Raging Bolt Mirror, but no, I do think that because it was actually in a little bit more of a useful role, and I feel like we got to see actually quite a bit of that this weekend too, like with the ice beams and stuff. Like I'm still unsure about how I feel about Porygon 2 kind of in general, but honestly, just like how Nils was playing it, I mean, it looked fantastic, because my issue with Porygon 2 is it sometimes feels really bulky, but sometimes it just kind of feels like it goes out there to die, obviously
Right.
in a kind of like middling speed tier. But when you are having like the constant like swaps and you can't really catch the Porygon 2 and he kind of like wastes you out of options before going for it, it's like, oh, okay. Like he made Porygon 2 look really good.
I'm trying to find on the socials where was the oh my gosh, the Golden Go that got frozen.
Oh my gosh,
What round was I'm
yes.
trying to find it. That was crazy. Like literally the game was over. Here is it. Golden Go switches in to take an ice beam meant for landers, but freezes under the pressure. Oliver Escalon never thaws, and Nils Dunlop wins his 11th round of the weekend. Because most people, you think Golden Go is just peachy. It's just nothing can affect it. But it's only pure status condition that it's immune to. It's immune to Spore, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, those Thunder Wave, like, so things that are just a status condition, Good as Gold protects, but it doesn't stop Thunderbolt Paralysis chance or Freeze Ice chance or Flare Blitz Burn chance. And I think a lot of people kind of forget that interaction sometimes. So like the crowd went crazy when they saw the Cheese Man get frozen.
What was the craziest part, though, was to survive the, I believe it was Earthquake, because obviously you're going to be weak to that. You're banking on waking up,
Yep.
surviving the hit, and then going for it. So the Golden Go actually terrestrializes while completely frozen, and the animation looks so stupid. It's like, you have like the big where like the Pokemon like kind of like, when like the screen goes back and there's the whole burst and you see the hat and the Pokemon does like an animation, and it's just eerily still.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. It's so funny to think of like an in-universe, like the Pokemon has enough agency to activate its terrestrialization while frozen, but it cannot move. Like, so it put a hat on, but it doesn't have the hand, it can't move to use a, Shadow Ball or make it rain or something. So yeah, I think that's one of the things, Sierra, that pretty much every Pokemon player would agree on, is that the current iteration of Freeze, just how it works, it's got to go. I don't know what the solution is. I'm not saying the Legends Arceus, Frostbite or whatever, but something out there has to be better than what our current version of Freeze, of just a 20% chance forever to thaw. Like something has to be better than that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but hey, it's it's Pokemon. Sometimes those odds they be happening here. But cuz like you look at like the Sand Tombs over the weekend, we have like one of the Tinglus in our top 8 here. And it was a team that we saw a couple of times, and even in the seniors grand finals, and the Ting Lewis will not hit a Sand Tomb to save its life.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but that's the risk. That's the risk you run when you use less than 100% accurate moves. Tell that to Riley. Yeah, I'm sure if Riley was watching the stream, he was just like shaking his head. And every time you click that, was it 85% accurate Sand Tomb? It's like you get what you deserve.
It's tough. It's tough because it's like the whole use the moves that are best, and then it's like, well, if you don't hit them, they ain't doing anything. So it's kind of rough.
Especially when your whole strategy is contingent on it, right? Like I think that's where people get frustrated with RNG the most, and they get, oh, it's not fair and hacks and blah blah blah. Is like, if your entire game plan relied around landing Will-O-Wisp and you missed it, or if your entire game plan relied around Nature's Madness or Ruination and you got the 10% miss, or the only single way you can win this matchup is if Sand Tomb connects in this exact slot and you have the 15% chance to miss. I think like that's what makes people frustrated, but unfortunately that's just how the game works. So sometimes it's better to just put yourself in positions that you don't have to rely on the inaccuracy of moves.
Well, I mean, as well, normally, and like people, if they want to correct me if I'm wrong on this one, go ahead. But I've at least found that when I'm relying specifically on an RNG thing, that it wasn't necessarily the greatest matchup in the first place. And
Right.
if every single matchup you're facing is you have to hit a Will-O-Wisp or whatnot for it to be playable, I think that's just bad team building in a way. Like, I'm just comparing it to like the Sun team that I run, right? And there is bad matchups where it's literally like, all right, you're out to make this more even is to hit the sleep powder on this turn. And then it's like, okay, And then if I miss it, it sucks. But it was based around the fact that this wasn't a great matchup in the first place. And this instance of RNG will make it better. It's not going into good matchups being like, if I hit this, then it's all good, right? At least not across the board. So I think it's every matchup you have to be doing that. It's kind of rough. But also, if you're just having a good day and you're hitting everything, like, hey, is what it is, right? You just like you really have to value where like there's that risk and reward. And you have to make sure if you're kind of risking so much that it's going to be really, really paying off. Like, in the long run.
I do think it is fascinating players' mindsets, right? Because like you like in my head, you know, if I click Icy Wind at 95% accuracy, like I genuinely feel wronged that an Icy Wind misses. Like I truly feel like that's not fair that Icy Wind missed. But if I miss a rock slide at 90%, I get it. You know what I mean? And there's only a 5% difference on accuracy there. And so I think the real struggle for Pokemon players is that 90%, like let's say 95 to like 75 range is like Magma Storm 75, right? Hydro Pump is 80% accurate. Will-O-Wisp is 85 and Rock Slide's 90. Like that area is where games are won and lost off of RNG. But nobody ever clicks raw Thunders, right? People don't really click raw Bleakwind Storms if they're able to click Rain Dance beforehand. Like it's only in an emergency that you'll do it.
I disagree with that second one, but I do agree with you on the Thunder.
Right. So when we get to 70% accuracy, people are willing to state that is too risky and will circumvent it by setting up rain so Thunder hits, or will use Hypnosis at 65, so I'll use Gravity so to guarantee the Hypnosis connects, you know, on the next turn. Like, so I think it's interesting that people, like, what if more people start using Gravity or other like accuracy boosting moves on their 80, 85, 90% accurate things? Because like, wasn't there a breakdown with Talonflame back in Regulation B? I want to say Geo did it, but it might have been another top player that did this breakdown on the difference between Sharp Beak and the item that increases accuracy by 10%, and the
Wide
value
lens?
that Wide Lens on Talonflame, just to make Will-O-Wisp like a 94% accurate move compared to 85. And like it was like breaking the value. It's like the value that the 20% extra damage Shark Beak gives your Brave Bird compared to the 9% more accuracy Will-O-Wisp gives to it. You know what I mean? So like I'd love to see people mitigate risk that way with held items or other, you know, lowering evasion strategies or something like that.
I mean, you already see it with some Pokemon with Wide Lens, right? I mean, you're looking at stuff like Mousehold, Population Bombs, stuff like that. I just think in a lot of cases, it's not worth it. Like
Jamie
more so
Boyd's
when you're
Superior is Wide Lens, so you have the 99% accurate whatever.
And unfortunately, Boyd did not do too well this weekend
Did he
because
bring
of
Superior?
I think he did, and he had absolutely dreadful RNG luck against him. Like, ended up like dropping. Like, it was actually like rip. Like, I was talking to him, and I'm like, "You're gonna have to pull a Riley Factor," and he's like, "No, I'm gonna have to." Like, this is like, you know, like nothing.
James wake up call.
No, it was I sat down and talked to him about it, and it was like it was bad. It was actually like. I don't like listening to like I missed this and I lost stories, because I'm just like, you're playing RNG Pokemon, like that's it. But like how consistent it was to him, it was actually like, oh, like I'm genuinely sorry. Like that's actually like you smited somebody up there and they're coming for you. You wronged someone, they're coming for you, right? Like it was really, really bad. But he had Wide Lens on a Pokemon and it still just wasn't like, you know, but I think in a lot of cases, like when you are looking at the moves, like specifically you're talking about Gravity for better Hypnosis, like there was that Sandy Shock as part of our team, but it goes back to you're doing that strategy, so now you have two Pokemon that like kind of suck.
They can only do that, right? They're not
they
as
only
valuable.
Do that thing.
Yeah.
So once we see those moves on better Pokemon, or we start seeing moves that consistently need the item, like when Mousehold was in its Wide Lens Population Bomb era, I think we'll see it. I just think we haven't quite hit that point yet.
Actually, you know, Sierra, I do have a question for you, because you were there.
Right.
You were in the XL Center, and I have to know who let the dogs out, because we had multiple okie dogies on stream this weekend that were putting in work, also getting obliterated, but also sometimes putting in work. What happened to EU that we had Pheasantipity and Okie Dokie on stream?
Okay, first off, when you said you let the dogs out, so horrifying airport story. I'm sitting there waiting to go home, and this guy, dogs fully out, and I mean his toesies, in the airport, like comes over, and like normally in the airport, there's like a seat buffer between people if there's a lot of seats, right? Like don't sit near me if there's busy, whatever. So he comes over with his bare toes. First off, touches my bag that's on the ground with his toesies, like. What? Oh my God. And then just sits next to me, like with his feet both like just like in front of me with his toes. And I'm just like sitting there mortified, like trying to eat my breakfast.
Disgusting.
Yeah. I was like, I turned to like
Hey, bro,
Ugarte
can you
and I'm
put
like,
the dogs away for a second?
yeah,
Like...
I turned to Ugarte sitting next to me and I'm like, can we just go sit somewhere else? Like, he just touched my bag with his toes. So we got up and we moved. But yeah, that was just the, the flashback when I was like, who let the dogs out there? It was bad. It was
disgusting. I think people who are shoeless in airports should. I won't finish the sentence. I'll get in trouble.
I won't get in trouble for this one. Everybody does what they want, right? But when you're at an airport and they make you take your shoes off to walk through TSA, I just can't imagine why you'd want to do that in bare feet.
It makes no sense.
What? Like, it's already like, I feel like a lot about it with socks.
We all signed a social contract together in this situation that this is how we get through with TSA and all the nonsense or whatever. You're in a social setting. You're not in your house. You're not at the beach. Or you know what I mean? Like you are actively making the situation worse by being, sockless at the airport.
It's like if you stop and think about that whole convention of like we have to like take our feet out of our shoes and put them on this ground where thousands of people have been walking God knows where and getting whatever on the bottom of their shoe. They're walking in that area and then like people are putting their feet then on their bare feet on the same area. Like it's so disgusting, even in socks. It's absolutely disgusting if you take more than like 3 seconds to think about it. But then to do that with bare feet as well, like I don't understand it. Like I'm praying, and I really don't think they are, but like I don't know how often people who go out more so in non-socked shoes if they're washing their feet when they get home, but if they're not, and if that's not the first thing you do, you're walking around now in your house.
I wouldn't bet money
like
with your airport toes in your house.
It's just like I can't. Like it's so like everyone, you know what? Like you do you. It's your house. It's whatever. But it's like
clearly you're still traumatized over this.
Yeah, no, I was like, it was very much so. If you could see the look on my face in that moment, like again, do what you want, but do not come at me in the airport. Touch my stuff with your toes, and then sit next to me with them in front of me.
Yeah,
that's eating my breakfast.
That's kind of crazy.
All right. But yes, there was a lot of dog Pokemon at EUIC. Okie dokie. There was a Hisuian Arcanine in top 8. Like
the same team.
Yeah. There was. I don't like the Okie dokie. The one time we saw it on stream, or at least the one that I'm going to talk about, it was just kind of underwhelming. It was also a lot of more people have been adding Will-O-Wisps to Incineroar, so I think. That is kind of unfortunate when you have an Assault Vest Pokemon that isn't like setting up. Some Okie Dokies do run like bulk up. I don't know if any at EUIC necessarily were, but it was just kind of like unfortunate that you're going up against this Incineroar that's, sure, you get the guard dog boost if it intimidates into you. So it seems offhand, great Metacall, but then it just burns you. So I'm honestly like hats off to Diego for making it to top 8 with an Okie Dokie.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the, like, we've talked with Scott about it because Scott's a big Okie Dokie fan, like especially in Regulation E. And it's one of those, it's just like one of those almost there Pokemon. Like we don't have a title, we don't have a name for those almost competitively viable tier. You know what I mean? But like Okie Dokie is there, and like probably like Whimsicott in this tier. Like it's almost there, right? Like different Pokemon throughout the years, like Blastoise throughout many years was almost right at that competitive edge. And like we got to come up with a term for those like Pokemon that are just barely outside of the quote unquote, competitively viable. And Okidogi, it's because it's got 80 speed, so it's not fast enough to deal with the fast Pokemon, and it's too fast to be a Trick Room Pokemon. And it's one bad stat, I believe, or it's not bad, but one of its lower stats is special defense. So you want an Assault Vest, but then when you run an Assault Vest, you can't do what Okidogi wants to do, which is bulk up Drain Punch, which is the whole point of the Pokemon. So that's like it's excuse me, it's just between so many different directions that also the poison fighting typing is just like straight garbage of a typing to have. Like I would take literally anything over poison fighting. Like he could be grass fighting in this, he could be grass, I don't know, dark fighting, something like that, or Shifu's dark fighting is working out great for him, right? So like I wish Okidogi could work, but like you need the Assault Vest to live attacks because there's so many great special attackers in the format. But then because you have Assault Vest, you don't have bulk up to actually make your Drain Punches do any damage.
Yeah, the one cool thing about Okidogi though that we actually got to see, I think the game kind of was a little cooked at this point. But Upper Hand coming out. So that was like one of the new moves that was introduced for Scarlet and Violet. So if the target has selected a physical or special move with increased priority from +1 to +3 and has not yet had a chance to execute its move, Upper Hand will strike first and cause the target to flinch. The one thing that's kind of awkward about that ability is if somebody clicks something, if that's a +4, well, then it just fails. If they're at a faster +3 than you, it also fails. And correct me if I'm wrong, Fake Out to +3. And it worked out that the Upper Hand could, upper hand the Incineroar in the matchup that was in to stop the Fake Out. But if somebody just has like some crack team or like even like looking at things like Brillabooms out there, it's just like the attack is also in that same spot of, oh, you wish that Pokemon is so close to being viable, but it's not quite there. Like that's how I feel about Upper Hand as a move as well. Like I wish it was just like straight up like one higher tier of priority, or at least put it on a Pokemon that's a smidge faster, because it is pretty niche.
So you're right, yeah. Fake Out's +3 priority. I thought it was +4, honestly. So it's just +3, meaning it's just it's essentially since Upper Hand and Fake Out are the same tier, it just means that Upper Hand beats extreme speed, extreme speed and everything below, right? So extreme speed's +2, and then normal stuff like Aqua Jet, Grassy Glide, Sucker Punch, those are +1 priority. So
and slow Fake Outs.
And right in theory, but you have 80 speed, right? So depends on like even Rillaboom is a higher base speed than you. You would outspeed Incineroar if Incineroar is not invested, but yeah, I'm not sure because like it does. Okidogi does seem to be fairly well optimized in its stats, right? Like its one bad stat is its special attack of 58 that you would never use. But like, could we take 10 defense out to make Okidogi 90 speed instead of 80 speed? Like something like that to help me, because that upper hand is just never gonna be. And what's the base power on Upper Hand? Do we even
65?
Yeah, so it's like yeah, you got your gotcha, but you didn't even punish them fully because that's probably not even knocking anything out, you know?
Yeah, it's like I'm okay without I'm very much okay that it doesn't knock out, because realistically the whole point is that it stopped a priority move, and the whole point that I saw in the video when it first released was to stop Fake Out. That was the cool part of it. But then being the same priority tier, and a lot of Incineroars, they do kind of tend to be not the most invested. You kind of like a slower parting shot at times, so you can make sure you bring something safe. It really depends how you build your team. There was some cracked Incineroars this weekend. There was some Incineroars that I believe there was one that outsped a Rillaboom or something at one point. It was actually just this Incineroar is nuts, right? So it's just oh, okay, well, if you're not up against a slow Incineroar, the move's essentially useless. And if you don't know that heading into the battle, which one it is, you could literally Upper Hand and fail because they had a faster Fake Out, and you would have just assumed you were the faster one. It's just not good. It's just not good.
Yeah, now, Incineroar back on top in its rightful place, as deserves. Day 1, 43% usage, and then going into day 2 was 51.7, so almost 52% usage. So how do we do you think we can finally end this narrative that some people have tried to push, that Incineroar is not that great? Can we end it?
It's been for a couple of events now. There was like a I forget what event it was at, or if it was even EUIC. I don't know. It feels like so long ago now, but it was talking about like, this forecast topics, and it was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is Incineroar really back? And I was like, guys, we need to stop with this Incineroar really back. We look silly. It is very back. It's been doing phenomenal for quite a bit of time now. I think maybe it was like the regional before EUIC, and then we have talked about it was like, no, like
Yeah,
why?
because it was at like
I can
30% for one of the regionals, I think. So people are like, oh, it's only 30%. I'm like,
And I'm like, I am not playing into this narrative. Like, it is back, guys. It is a good Pokemon. Like, I was willing to, like, the first regional or two be kind of like, is it? Is it not? But then now I'm like, yo, I think it's pretty proven. Like, this is a top tier Pokemon. And I also don't think falling off of usage, like, when it was slow to pick up, I think it was cause for concern. But let's say next event, Orlando happens and Incineroar drops down to 35% usage next day. I don't think it's a bad Pokemon in any case. I don't think it's like, oh my god, it's fallen off, which is then also then like that's like what's happened to Flutter actually currently. Like Flutter's
yeah.
gone from like a very like in my opinion like unhealthy like 60%. It kind of went down to 50, 45ish, which has been fine. And then EUIC, it's clocked in at 32% for day 2. And I don't think that makes Fluttermane a bad Pokemon.
That's
I think this is
seventh on the
good.
usage. Fluttermane being the seventh most used Pokemon
That's fine though.
is insane. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's insane to even think about from the last year plus that we've lived through VGC. You know what I mean? Like that it's gone from like upwards of 70% usage and higher at certain events to now being 32% on the day 2 field. Like I do think that some of the other I wouldn't say like Fluttermane's the biggest loser in usage.
That'd be your girl Ogerpon.
That would be Ogerpon Wellspring because we need like a Netflix documentary on the downfall of Ogerpon Wellspring because I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that's
she
actually
still stops Urshifu Rapid Strike, and Urshifu Rapid Strike is just as high as he's ever been now, up in the 45% usage. So why is my girl lowering in usage? I don't get it.
Yeah, that is actually one looking at that it's like, wow, that is a drastic drop because it's like Ogerpon like instantly went to like, there was the one event where I think Ogerpon Wellspring topped out at like 68% or something.
Yeah.
It was actually like insane levels. And then down to 23%, I think is crazy. Because when I'm looking at things too, and with Urshifu Rapid Strike just being better, like, I guess you don't like taking sludge bombs from Lando, but then you Terra, and then you have the thing. I think it's more so people are using very specific cores that can counter the Ogerpon, whether it Terastallizes or doesn't. But it still just feels bad. I think the fact too that Raging Bolt is on the upwards tick. But then I look at that and then I'm like, oh, well, Urshi isn't down. But I guess it's more so because you're like choosing to run those Pokemon together as opposed to just kind of like the one or the other.
Yeah, I think it's that combination, Sierra, of Raging Bolt, Urshifu, and Landorus Incarnate. Because like as I played Ogerpon Wellspring in Charlotte, like anytime the other team had a Landorus, I was stuck every single turn because I wanted Terastallize to get weak to lose my grass typing, but I also wanted to save my Terastallization for like a more important target later in the game, right? And like Landorus Incarnate is just provides so much offense that like you have to immediately deal with it. Like you can't just let it sit on the field, and God forbid you let them get a substitute up. You might as well just forfeit if you let Landorus get a substitute up. But the combination of Raging Bolt, Urshifu, and Landorus, so like, all right, well, they have Urshifu Rapid Strike. I have to bring Ogerpon. All right. Oh, they have Landorus. I have to Terastallize to lose my grass typing so I don't get OHKO'd by Sludge Bomb. Oh, but they also have Raging Bolt, so if I do Terastallize, then they can just Thunderclap me to smithereens because I'm a mono water type now. So I think those three in combination, and of course Rillaboom increasing in usage as well, because like you don't care about Amoonguss as much, but Rillaboom has the Grassy Glides and Wood Hammers. Like even neutral Wood Hammers from Rillaboom are really tough for Ogerpon to deal with. So yeah, it's just one of those things, I guess, in the meta that we see Ogerpon Hearthflame has 1% higher, 24% usage, and it might just be one of the scenarios that the Wellspring Master it is not providing as much defense as it used to in the meta, so you might as well go offensive and Terastallize and gain an attack boost and have those +1 Ivy Cudgel crits.
Well, as well, another thing for like why the Urshi water, not the Urshi, the Ogerpon water would fall as opposed to the Urshi water is more people just kind of picking up Urshi water. And when you're looking at things like, first off, Incineroar everywhere. Well, Ogerpon's gonna get intimidated. Urshi doesn't care. Urshi looks at your Intimidate and laughs at you. As well, when you have like things like an Amoonguss and Incineroar on your team, you have this fake out and people kind of protecting past turns. Okay, well, Unseen Fist, you know? I think it's just kind of gotten to the point where everyone picked up the Ogerpon Wellspring to kind of counteract the, oh my gosh, Urshifu is everywhere. But then everyone's just kind of like, oh, well, I used to play Ogerpon Wellspring. Here's all the issues with it. Sure, it counts, it like can body Urshi, but now I don't have an Urshi, and I kind of need this because it's really good. So I think that's just going to be another one of those things as the meta kind of goes on forward to kind of just like go up and down with it.
The other interesting Pokemon here is the rise of my guy Chien-Pao, because it just seems like when ICs roll back around, the Chien-Pao just comes back. I remember last year, I want to say Chien-Pao won both Oceania and North America last season. No, it wasn't Oceania because it didn't exist yet. So it won NAIC on Alex Gomez's Dozo team, and it won a lot of the regionals. Like Justin Tang won with the Dragapult Chien-Pao core in Fort Wayne. And like Chien-Pao was a Pokemon that was everywhere. Like I was just like the lowering your defense is just so good. It's just so impossible. Chien-Pao won Worlds with their Shifu on the team, right? Shohei's team. And then the last couple of months, it's just been like kind of a 20 to 25% usage mon. So I like that in day 2 at EUIC, it's got back up to 38%, because I really do think Chien-Pao is like a make or break Pokemon in this format because of how strong it makes your Wood Hammers, it makes your Flare Blitzes, it makes your Rock Slides, it makes your, your Surging Strikes or whatever. Like, and then of course with Stellar Terastallization, you can also do a whole load of damage if you Terastallize the Chien-Pao as well. So I like this trend of bringing Chien-Pao back up into the high usage.
Yeah, like I don't really think it dipped too low, but it is just a strong Pokemon. And looking at it too, like, and maybe there's someone listening that's going to clown me for this one. I don't think it's an unbalanced Pokemon. I think it's strong, but you kind of get your one attack and like 1.5. One if you're just going to hit with priority into it. So it's like I think it's really, really strong, but it very much so is like it doesn't stick around, like it's fast, so powerful, one strong attack. But oh, you can fake it out. If they commit the Terra, then it's a Terra Hog. Okay, and get priority. Its original typing is actually pretty weak defensively, right? And then all of a sudden, if you are using something like a Sucker Punch, well, you can play around sort of priority moves, right? So I don't know. I think it's like in a good spot to where like I like where it's sitting.
Well, I mean, just wait till May when we have 435 speed Pokemon all meta defining at the same time. So that should be a good time as a team builder.
It'll be a good time. Oh yeah, so good.
I think honestly at that point, because you have Sucker Punch, I think if you are playing Chien-Pao in Regulation G, I think you just concede and go adamant and just never try to win that speed tie. You know what I mean? Just like have a stronger Sucker Punch.
No, because I'd actually go the other way. Because
like risk the 50-50 every time.
Well, because the thing is if other people are having the same mentalities about it, but it's the 50-50 or you lose outright in those cases. Like, I'm looking at it, Chien-Pao v. Chien-Pao. And all of a sudden, like, I would rather play the 50-50 than just take the loss.
I don't know if I could handle that mentally. Like, I think I'd love to, to other people think on the topic too, because like, there are times when you consciously choose to not engage in a speed tie, it helps your decision making. And then your opponent who doesn't have that information, right? Like they don't know that you're not max speed. So they might make less optimal decisions thinking that you are max speed.
Yeah, which I can see that. I think it'll be really interesting to see kind of considering it's like the Koraidon, Miraidon, Flutter, and Chien-Pao all at the same speeds. Kind of where people prioritize with that. Obviously it's going to be booster speed Flutter, so people can just like outright kind of win that. But I think it'll come down to the Koraidon and the Miraidon as well, and kind of where they sit. Because it's like, I definitely understand the lines of, oh, will you go down here? I just know, like, in my own team building, I've liked to it a little bit more, but it's definitely one of those, like, I'm not steadfast in that. It's definitely I could change my mind on it sort of thing. I just have a hard time willingly giving up that speed war.
And it's definitely going to be something we have to like watch, because we're used to legendaries like counteracting each other or like having their mechanics interact with each other. So you had like Kyogre and Groudon forever, and then you had the Delta Stream from Rayquaza. Like they all interact on the weather aspect. But Miraidon and Koraidon do not interact with each other. They stack. One sets electric terrain and one sets the sun. It's not like one setting sun and one setting another weather, or one's electric terrain and one's deleting that with another terrain. So I think that's what's going to be fascinating, is how people use Iron Bundle, how they use Fluttermane, and like let's say I have Fluttermane and I have Koraidon on my team, but I also have Iron Bundle on my team just in case my opponent has Miraidon on it, and I get the free electric terrain without having to invest an electric terrain user on my team. Like that's where I think the mind games are going to go crazy in Regulation G.
That was my favorite when I was running Sun, and I see him playing it up against a Sun game, and I'm like, I'm leaving Torkoal at home. You either bringing Sun or none of us get it, because I am not. And I tell you, there was not a single time that my opponent did not bring their Sunsetter, and I just got to profit with free Sun. And then whatever other Pokemon, and they were always a turn behind. But no, that'll be interesting. But that's not the conversation for today. We're still talking about EUIC.
You're right.
EUIC stuff. Come on. All right. What next about EUIC?
Oh, okay. So I admittedly, I had walked away from the stream. I want to say this was day 2. I'd walked away. I'll get up at 3 a.m. every day. It's a little rough trying to, I'm drinking 3 monsters a day, just trying to stay awake for that time, right? Ordering Wawa with energy drinks and stuff. Like, I'm struggling. So I just like walk up and down my stairs for a couple minutes just to keep my energy, keep myself up. And I come back to the stream.
I know you're
and it looks like Sierra just got hit by like a bucket of water because she's crying so much. And I didn't ask what happened because I wanted to wait for this moment, because I need to know what the heck happened, because you looked like you were like uncontrollably laughing at something that happened on the broadcast.
Wait, you actually have no idea what happened?
I truly have no idea what happened. I was waiting for this moment to figure out what it was. Because I saw you crying and Lou was trying to like recover the situation. I was like, I must have missed something amazing.
All right, so
let's get into it.
And there's a whole clip to it too. So for anyone watching who did watch the moment, this is the Slugma moment.
I already okay.
Yeah, so you already know that this isn't gonna go well, right? So me and Lou are playing Pokédex entries, and the question comes up of let me pull up the exact wording of the question, right?
Okay.
All right, we'll get there. We'll get there because this is important too. So Pokédex entry. It controls flames burning at over 5,400 degrees Fahrenheit. It casually swims through the sea of lava it creates by melting rock and sand. So we're just trying to like guess a couple of things. She says Mega Camerupt. I give her a look.
I would have said Camerupt.
Yeah. And like in my mind, I'm like, oh my god, there's actually a genuine like way that the answer here is Slugma. But Sierra, you cannot say Slugma on an official Pokemon broadcast, because the whole thing, for anyone who doesn't know, apparently a lot of people don't know this, is we go, oh, what's the pre-evolution of Macargo? And they go, Slugma, and you go, Slugma nuts. That's like the whole thing. So yeah, I thought that everyone knew this. So I'm like, Sierra, you cannot say Slugma on an official broadcast. You cannot. It's the only thing going through my head is it's like, you cannot say this. So then I'm like, okay, well, I still want to guess Slugma because I think it actually genuinely could be the answer here. So Lou, I'm like, all right, well, I don't know what Camerupt. And I'm like, well, it could be Macargo or like baby Macargo. And then she goes, Slugma? Slugma? Is it Slugma? And it's in this moment that I realize, oh, she doesn't know.
She doesn't know.
If she had said it once, it would have been fine. If she said it twice, it would have been fine. But she keeps repeating it over and over, and I'm sitting there,
Oh,
and
poor Lou.
you can see my lips start quivering, and you can tell I'm about to lose it. And she's like, is it a Slugma? And then I'm just like, could be. And then she doesn't know why I'm laughing. She doesn't know. And I'm trying so hard. And then she's like, it could be Slugma. And she's like, she keeps saying Slugma over and over. And every time she says it, I'm breaking down more and more. And I keep opening my mouth to just say any other name, anything to get her off this trail, right? Like, you see me trying to open my mouth at one point. I'm trying to just say Heatran or anything. And I just open my mouth and I just start laughing even harder. And then she's got the giggles. And she's like, well, Sierra must be laughing for a reason. So she thinks that she's mispronouncing the name, or she God forbid, accidentally swore. So she's like, it is called Slugma, right? It's Slugma. And then I'm sitting on the laptop side where production is like, yes, Lou, it's called Slugma, to try and get her to stop saying it. But I'm sitting on that side, so she can't see it. So I'm like, yes, it's called that. So I'm crying, and I start tearing up. Tears going down my eyes, and then she's like, I know I like my slug Pokemon, but you see this look of pain on my face. And then she's like, I'm just like, let's lock it in. She's like, let's get the answer. You're breaking us. And a Chi-Yu pops up on the screen. And it's just just loser.
It wasn't even Slugma.
It wasn't even Slugma. It was Chi-Yu. And I have tears streaming down my face. I am bawling my eyes out. And again, she still doesn't know why. And she's like, we're learning today. And I'm like, we're learning. And I just know afterwards, oh my God.
That's so good.
Yep. I had to explain to, Katie knew, production didn't know. So I had to explain the whole thing to production after on why I was losing it. Yeah, it's a,
wow.
Yeah, happened.
That's a moment. That's a beautiful moment. I got to see this clip now. Because all I saw was the aftermath, and I was like, I missed something.
It's at 5:42, 5:46:42 of the day 2 VOD. For those who are curious on YouTube, and chat is also hilarious because they're like, oh no, they're like, Sierra, hold strong, you can do it, and they're just like, oh my God, yeah, it was admittedly not my proudest moment. It is pretty funny though. And it's ultimately at the end of the day, whether I got in trouble or not, I have not gotten in trouble as of this moment.
No,
but
of course not. Yeah.
I genuinely did not mean to bait her. I was so cautious about saying Slugma.
And Lou is just trying to have. She's trying to have a conversation. She no idea what world she entered into.
Her poor innocent soul, who just had absolutely no idea. Yeah, so that was the moments of the weekend. Oh my God, literally. So afterwards, anyone who hadn't seen it got to show it, and every time I showed it, I cried. And at one point at the staff party, I go get this hot dog, and I come back and I see people with their phones open showing this Slugma clip. I'm like, yep, this sounds about right. Yep. So.
Ooh, how was the staff party?
It was cool. Pikachu showed up. They did the Pikachu song, not Pikachu, the Pokemon theme song, and the Pikachu came out, and it was it was really funny. Everyone was filming and kind of dancing and singing along. Other than that, it was a typical staff party. I got a hot dog, and I didn't want ketchup or relish, so I asked if they could put guac on it because I had a nacho stand, and the guy gave me a look, but he put guac on it. It was really, really good.
I'm giving you a look right now. What?
It was good. And then left early to go to a private karaoke room. With
you and your karaoke, I swear.
Yeah, it was so much fun. It was majority the Ireland VGC people. A couple others. Brian Hume was there. Boyd was there. Strider was there. Pulled Charlie along, the host for the weekend.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. So yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. But yeah, EUIC just in general was awesome.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Charlie. Best of luck with Chazinger Chat's new project. Hopefully, that does well for him. But I think Charlie did a great job. I think in the lounge and all the fun drawing segments, and I think it was name every Pokemon you can think of that starts with A or B or C. I think Charlie did a really good job of entertaining in between the rounds.
Oh, 100%. The whole crew over there, like, I just have to say is fantastic. Like, I had mentioned last week that, like, there was, like, casting practices happening, um, and it was just so nice, like, how I don't know, like, we bonded. They adopted me. Like, I'm, like, the NA invader, and they just adopted me. Like, we had to do filming for the Pokemon Center video, which turned out so cute, by the way. But,
Yes.
it had already been a long rehearsal day, but everyone's just kind of, like, standing against the wall, chatting or playing on their phone, and the VGCers are standing, like, 10 feet away, and we're all in a circle, like, singing and dancing and doing some acapella, like,
Oh my
it
god.
was, like, I don't know why, like, we were so unhinged, but yeah. We also played so much of the Mind, which was awesome, and then everyone was really, like, big on, like, "Alright, we'll help each other with feedback," like, me and Lou, after every day, like, sat down and looked over casts and, like, prepped and stuff, and, like, honestly, that whole crew, like, they did such an outstanding job, like, the work they put in really showed, like, Lou and Lee are always fantastic, Costa crushed it, Charlie, like, born for hosting, like,
Yeah,
absolutely
fantastic
unreal,
personality.
and I'm like, "I think I'm a pretty good host," and I'm, like, talking to Charlie, and I'm like, "Dude," I'm like, "I came in here thinking, like, I'm a pretty good host, and you're just, like, effortlessly, like, amazing and, like, 10 times better than I could ever be, like, what the heck?" Like,
There was
"You're
the
so
one
good," like
moment, I gotta call that, the one moment in Masters Finals where
ugh.
he got himself too hype. He was too hypey with it. And he's like, the Masters Finals, we're gonna have Nails, Dunlop. And then it was just silent because he forgot Tim Edwards' name. I was like, oh, I feel you, brother. I have been there. You were on stage without a paper. There is nobody to help you in that moment. I felt so bad for him. But
Oh my
like, it
god.
was so funny because he was like 110% on that call and it just
Yeah.
stopped. And
Dude, my heart broke for him in that moment. I'm watching it and, like, yeah, been there, done that. That's why I always have papers. I
yeah.
do, like, I didn't get a chance to memorize my script for the closing ceremony because
You had a long closing ceremony too.
it was a long closing ceremony. I normally memorize the scripts anyways. I like memorizing them. My script was changed day of the event while I was prepping for Masters Finals. So
Oh.
I had to do Masters Finals to then run to the stage with this script that is changed. So that was a little tough. So I did have to look at the cards a couple times. But normally I have the scripts memorized. Regardless, always have that piece of paper in my hands because it happens. You
Yep.
know? And yeah, I felt so bad. I was sitting there and I was like, I genuinely do not know how he recovers. And he actually had the best recovery that you could have for the moment. Like
Yep.
that, I think, like, because like the whole forgetting a name, it happens. Happens to the best of us, right? I think it was Evan that it happened to at Toronto while he was in the lounge. Because same thing, he did a solo segment doing the pumpkin stuff, like introducing the pumpkin contest. So he didn't have papers. He didn't even have the option of papers because he was like thrown into the segment. And then he forgot like the next upcoming match, it happens. But yeah, Charlie had like literally the best recovery that he could have
Yes.
had considering the situation. Like he just like stopped, he took a deep breath, and then he just reintroduced and kept going on. And I'm like, yo, if I was on that stage and that happened to me, like I don't even know what I would have done
on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't even know what I would have done. It would not have been as eloquent as what he just did. So like I have to say like huge kudos to him on that.
Yeah, I loved like how unhinged the Pokemon Twitters were this weekend because like they had that photo of the Incineroar behind Costa. Like they posted that where it was like kind of like almost like Costa doesn't realize what's behind him, and then they had like the L plus ratio plus feels not in standard rotation, and like they threw the Pokemon.
I couldn't believe that one.
Our master let us fake out and spore yippee on the Incineroar Mungus post. That was crazy.
It's so funny because we had an Incineroar in the lounge and it disappeared, and I'm now kind of like realizing where it disappeared to.
Exactly.
The social steam stole it, but yeah, no, it was a lot of fun about this weekend. Honestly, like it was genuinely like just such a fun time. Like it's like that I have event FOMO because like I'm not going to Orlando. I know you are, but now I'm just like, man, I want to be at another event again, and I can't with the EU people for sure. But now I can't even hang out with you guys the next weekend. I got to sit at home, like, man.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a tough feeling. You want to be a part of everything. You want to be everywhere. Like, obviously because we like our job and we like doing this, but also because of our friends, right? Like, you know, some of my closest friends in the world, like in Pokemon or outside of Pokemon, are some of my Pokemon friends, right? So it's always a great time. I'm excited. You know, it hasn't been that long since Vancouver. It's been like, what, 3 weeks or something? So it's not like I'm too long, but that 6-week stretch was rough. Not seeing my friends for 6 weeks. That was a long time. So I'm excited for Orlando. I'm the host this weekend, so I got to live up to your expectations and Charlie's expectations. I got to be on the same plan. I'm not sure. I have some ideas for some downtime segments, but we'll see if we can implement them with the technology that we have at hand. So fingers crossed. But
I mean, as always, you can always ask any advice or opinions or just bounce ideas off of me. I know, like, I don't know, like I've spent a lot of time hosting because I definitely did a lot of it at the beginning of the season. So like I'd like to think I'm okay enough at it. You know,
I guess my like worry, like I'm not worried about post game interviews and stuff because like I've been literally doing that for 8 years now, so like I have that down pat. But like I guess I'm worried about the floor interviews and like finding those segments and like having them, like having players on call that like I hope that their round is like a quick 2-0 so that they are available to do a floor interview. Like that's where my concern is.
I mean, it's really just like, because it's so hard to prep in advance. If you know somebody's going to be there that's not a player you'd like to talk to, already have them on standby. But also like the team knows the commentators, so you also just kind of go out there and looking around, and like you'll recognize people who are free and available. They'll recognize you, so it's not like it's not too bad, honestly. And like, because I've definitely been there, done that. I think the difficult one was for some pre-recorded ones at LAIC. They're like, all right, who to pick? And I'm like, I don't know anyone here. What do you mean? Like, you pulled me along to the Pokemon TCG section with the juniors and seniors, and you're like, find a person to interview. And I'm like, I don't know. And thankfully, one of the juniors' moms, Katie, was around, and she saw me. She came over to say hi, and then Pokemon looked, and they're like, oh, can you interview her? She's perfect. And I was like, oh, okay, that was easy then. But yeah. No, it'll be fine. Trust. Like, yeah, like you can even post out, like asking, if there's anybody there.
I was thinking of doing that, like just posting on Twitter, be like, hey, if anyone has any interesting storylines or like interesting Pokemon that they're bringing to Orlando or something, you know, hit me, you know, DM me or something.
Yeah, no, you can definitely do that. So it'll be good. I promise you, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it should be a good weekend. I know last Orlando was like the biggest event ever, but then now we've had more biggest event ever since Orlando. So what's their overload events? Let me pull it because they just tweeted it out, right? The numbers 875 masters. So it's like that's almost EUIC, right? What was EUIC? It was like 950 or something.
EUIC was 975, I thought.
Okay.
So that is a good chunk.
Yeah, so that should be a good time, and you know, obviously Orlando is a very accessible. You know, it might be expensive for some people to get to, but it's at least an accessible. Like a lot of planes fly to Orlando. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
we should have a lot of like top talent coming on. I haven't like done my research yet into who is coming, but you know, I've been so swamped here. Oh my god, I don't even want to get into it, but you know, do you ever feel, I'm sure you feel this way. Do you ever feel like you have like way too many things and absolutely nothing happening at the same time?
Yes.
Like that's how I kind of feel right now. It's like I am way too overengaged. Like I talked to you about it, but for anyone who doesn't know, I'm going to a One Piece trading card game regional next week after Orlando. And pretty much since the beginning of March, like obviously besides my Pokemon obligations, I've just been all in on One Piece. I'm trying to play, watch as many VODs and like reviews and like watching tournaments and results and deck lists. And like I'm trying to inundate myself with as much as possible to be prepared for this regional. Like, and like it just feels like overwhelming like when you're learning a new game and trying to play a new competitive game, but then also I gotta stay on top of Pokemon and I got freelance editing responsibilities and all these other things. Like, so I feel like I've got so many things happening, but then at the same time I don't have too many things. It's a weird feeling, you know?
I feel that because especially too, you're talking about like learning a new game, and it's like I have my first Rainbow Six event coming up shortly, and I am like, oh my gosh, because it's like I obviously prep going into Pokemon events, but it's not like if I don't, that I all of a sudden don't know what an Incineroar does. You know,
Right.
I all of a sudden forget that Wolf Glick exists. You know, so it's like I do the prep, but I already feel confident with my baseline and everything going into it. That everything else is like that extra confidence, that extra knowledge, etc. Whereas like with Rainbow Six, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the first event, and I'm learning everything, and it's like so I already knew the game, but now it's like, all right, make sure that it's like absolutely like the best knowledge about it. And I have to learn all these players and all these teams, and I'm so stressed. But at the same time, it's like that event's 2 weeks away. So then it's like, what do I do? But then what I am doing is studying for it. But then it's like weird because it's not a set thing. It's
Hmm.
like the stuff that you're having to do. I don't know. Like you understand. It sounds weird, but you get it.
I totally understand where you're coming from. I think our listeners appreciate, you know, the inside stories and you know what we're going through on the back end to make productions happen and try to entertain everybody. But before we move on, let's just do one more cursory glance through EUIC. Just look at the teams here. Victor Road. I see that there are 3 Arch Aladon in top 16. How did that happen? What's going on there?
London, it's rainy.
They just have rain on the field already. Shout outs, Irish brethren, Brian Collins with the Indeedee and Hatterene Trick Room team. Ranked Smeargle got top 16 as well. Galarian Zapdos, Sam Denneker got 16th. What are you? Galarian Zapdos coming for the crown of not worst Gen 1 bird variant, you know? Are there any other Pokemon that you saw this weekend? Or like, what was your favorite match, not counting the finals? What was your favorite match that you casted this weekend?
Well, finals wasn't even my favorite match.
Oh, okay.
We can get into why after. I actually think one of the favorite moments that I remember offhand, and I wish I casted it better in the moment, was Pengy's match with the double
the
Rocky
chestnut?
Helmet. Yeah, with the double Rocky Helmet KO.
Yes.
To end off game 2 there. And it's like that one was kind of like I'm disappointed listening to back because I saw the win and then I talked myself out of it. And then it was like I knew that he like would have had the win because like they couldn't do enough damage. It was 3 physical attackers. Even if they did like some, he would still be Windstorm. Like it was just like I knew and I didn't commit to it. So I kind of felt a little bit bad about that. But I think that was just like a really, really cool moment. And I think had it been better called by myself, I think it could have been like one of the most insane moments. Like if Aaron Cybertron Zhang called that moment, like I think it would have been so good. But regardless, I still think that was like one of the favorite matches, especially too like first game, he like set Golden Go up to +6. It's just like,
yes!
all right, well, I'll just a nasty plot again. And then it was interesting because obviously he wasn't up against a conventional team, but he was up against this Chestnut.
Right. It's Shadow Ball, right? Because of the ability.
Yeah. So it was I think that was cool. I also it was cool to see Idu's Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam Golden Go because
yes.
Kind of didn't really fully like remember it gets that. So that was cool.
That was like pseudo Fluttermane, you know, from it was like nasty plot Fluttermane essentially.
If people are like, you have to pick between the Golden Go and the Fluttermane, he was like, I just want both, man. Like,
I do think that that match with Stefan was funny. One, obviously we're rooting for Stefan as American, but like he had just tweeted that morning a conversation with a friend asking Chestnut speed tier. And he was like, never thought I'd have to know this a day in my life. Or something like that was the tweet. And then he literally gets paired against the Chestnut on stream. And I thought when the belly drum went up, I thought it was over. I was like, oh no, Stefan, how are you going to get yourself out of this? And the fact that he got to +6 from Nasty Plots against a belly drum Chestnut was just like, unbelievable. And then that second game we mentioned, Incineroar and Urshifu both knocking themselves out to Rocky Helmet. The Play Pokemon, they tweeted, "Stop hitting yourself."
Yeah.
That's a banger tweet. Like I didn't even think about that, but like that's so funny that like Tornadus won without actually attacking. Like it was just the Rocky Helmet. Trying to think my favorite match. I gotta scroll because I'm looking through there was one early on that there was just like OHKO's back and forth. Let me try to find it. It was on day one. It was like a really hectic match. Hold on. Oh, there was also the one with the Terra Fire Urshifu against Terra Water Urshifu, where the Fire one went for the Aqua Jet, but because Clefairy was on the field, Urshifu lived on 6 HP, and Arash won that set. But that's not my match. Hold on. Sorry I'm taking so long.
You're fine.
One. Okay. Round 4. Oh, round 4. Marco Silva and Ashton Cox. By far, my favorite match of the whole weekend. Two-time international champions, and they're trading, Ice Cool Crash OHKO into Lando, and then the Incineroar crit Flare Blitz to OHKO, the Ogerpon on the other side. Like, and that set ended because Incineroar, I see the video now, Incineroar knocks itself out to Flare Blitz, KOs the Ogerpon, and it's just a 1 HP Chien-Pao on the field. That's how Ashton won game 3 with 1 hit point remaining. Like, that was my favorite match the whole weekend.
I missed that one because you know how like internationals are where they pull you away and stuff. So I missed it because I think I was getting like they had to redo it, but I'll have to go back and watch.
It was banger.
Controversial take. I actually really did enjoy the Raging Bolt mirror that we got to see on day 2. I actually really think mirrors are fascinating. The first teams that I got introduced to competitively were more balance oriented. So it's a lot about those minuscule like kind of differences, especially when you're on a balanced mirror. And I thought it was really, really interesting that for 2 teams that were so similar, and like one of the differences being that booster energy in comparison to leftovers, that was between Gomez and Tim Edwards. But I thought it was quite interesting, especially too that they had a very, very similar approach with like minuscule differences. So it's like, okay, we both want to bring the Raging Bolt out to start. We both have a fake out, but it's going to be Incineroar versus Rillaboom, and here's kind of why, and like that sort of thing. Like it definitely wasn't as fun to cast. Me and Lou literally sat there with whiteboards on our laps, just like, okay, calm mind, tick, tick. Okay, parting shot. Okay, wipe this one off. And like, it was definitely a lot in that aspect, but I think like the actual like intricacies of whether it was cool. Plus, it was kind of like okay, who's gonna break the stalemate, right? Like, how is this gonna be done? And then they both did on the same turn, right? And then it looks like Gomez gets the upper hand because he got the KO, but then how Tim was able to fight back from it, like it was just like I find like those things like so interesting. I can understand why people didn't like to watch it, but I thought it was like intriguing on that aspect, right?
It's definitely like the difference between being like a broadcaster and a viewer, right? Like as a broadcaster, you're able to tell a story and you can find something interesting through that battle, that combine battle. But as a viewer, it's not as exciting not to see the 1-hit KOs and the big damage and a lot of really slow plays. And I do think 47% of people in day 2 had a Raging Bolt, which is like it's kind of funny if you think about it, because like if Scarlet and Violet are like 50-50 on sales, you can almost imagine it like half of the people that have access to Raging Bolt like brought the Raging Bolt. Like obviously it's not how it works. You can get it from a friend, you can trade and stuff like that. But it's just funny to think about almost half the field's Raging Bolt and almost half the game doesn't have access to Raging Bolt. But I don't know if I could ever be an Epic gamer and be a Raging Bolt gamer, because like your Terra Fairy, your moves are Dragon Pulse and Thunderclap. So like if you face another Raging Bolt, if you're both Terra Fairy, Dragon Pulse doesn't work, and then Thunderclap, it might never work because of speed tiers and how the things interact, right? So like I don't know if I could ever commit to playing a Raging Bolt set that's like that. Like I would need Thunderbolt or something else that I don't have to rely on Thunderclap.
I mean, you'd hate to hear it, but the win con there, if it does get into that sort of end game, first just play better to begin with and just kind of eliminate it. We got to see both of them were not putting us into this situation. But realistically, if one's booster and one's lefties, you do play for time. Because realistically, you will win that. So as long as you've done something at some point to the opposing Raging Bolt. So yeah, nope, there is things you could do. It's not great, but it's there. But it was definitely an interesting match to watch for like different reasons. Finals was like, it was exciting in the fact that Nils was kind of like that always one step ahead, so it was kind of like interesting in that fashion. I wish a couple things maybe went a little bit more Tim's way, to make maybe that matchup be like ooh, this is so exciting. What was tough for me though wasn't even like about the match, but I could never really look back at that one too fondly because I just wasn't a fan of my casting for that. I know you can understand how that feels. Like the game's like good, but you come off of it and you're like, oh, I made this mistake or I did this, and it's ultimately that kind of clouds that moment. And I literally casted finals, ran off the stage to go backstage, put on heels, and walk out onto the stage for the closing ceremony. And I was holding back tears. I messed up the first word of the closing ceremony, and then I like left, and I just broke down into tears. So I was so upset with how that finals cast went. This weekend was the first time that I did analysis, and I thought I was like pretty okay at it. And like in the finals, because the script was changed, I was stressed out, and we were standing out in the lounge where everyone could see us, and I got the Terra mixed up on the P2. And I think on the I called a wrong move on something, and I corrected myself both times, but I was embarrassed that I was trying to do this analysis, and I was like, oh, the P2 can be stopped by two ways here, but there is the you'd have to worry if there is a fake out here, it could always just go into ghost. And then it was like, oh wait, sorry, this one doesn't have ghost, it's the flying one. It was just like, I felt dumb because I'd memorized those sheets, right?
It's not your fault. Like, obviously I've been there too, and that type of match is very tough on color commentary, because it's just Nils reading Tim 6 turns in a row on the switch-ins, and it's really tough for you as an analyst to analyze the board state, because it's like, well, is he gonna make a read, or is he just gonna go grass attack into water attack, which becomes, Incineroar, and then water attack into fire type, which then becomes the immune. Like, he's just gonna continue to do it every single turn, because like as an analyst, you're supposed to analyze the field and the board position and who is winning, right? So it's very tough for you in that spot to be like, well, he could make a read and try to get the pace back on his side, but how things are going, he might just attack in there again. I think that, kudos to you for, being on finals in that moment, because obviously, color commentary is not our main roles, right? So like, you're on your secondary role in a really stressful spot, and the action of the game doesn't help you as much as maybe some of the other games that you were on color were, that like help you, facilitate what you want to say. So I don't think you did a bad job. Obviously everyone has their own thing. I thought you and Lou were great together the whole weekend. There was the one time I texted you of the Ferretary.
Don't worry, that has already been called out multiple times in that YouTube VOD.
It was so funny. Like, obviously, that's just a slip up. It's not like, it's not a terrible mistake. That's a silly mistake. I'd like to have silly mistakes like that.
It's just funny that it's not the first time. The only one that drops that, and it's not the first time. And it's just like, really? It's really kind of like, whatever. Like you said, it is innocent. Like, it's just like a funny, but yeah, it was like, so since we had like the 3 play-by-plays for the weekend, like we kind of did more flexing. Like even when I'm casting with you, and you're doing color commentary, you know that I like doing flex a lot more.
Yeah.
Like I want to hop more into an analysis role, and I like just kind of breaking that down. So we did flexing, casting, and then I just picked up analysis where I was comfortable, but I got more and more comfortable as the weekend went on. But it was like frustrating because I felt like the read stuff and all that stuff in the finals was like fine, but it was the starting to call out that if you were Tim, you had to be worried about the Terra Ghost on the P2, and then I had to self-correct, just kidding, this one's built differently, so this is the option, but, and then like kind of like keep going on. The other one was like, oh, the Fluttermanes. Nils has Shadow Ball, Tim does not. So both Fluttermanes led off, and Tim actually has booster in comparison to Choice Specs, I believe it was. Oh no, sorry, it's booster, but Tim's is speed and Nils is special attack.
Right.
So realistically, had both of them had Shadow Ball, it then gets into the, well, Tim has the upper hand, but there can be the terrestrialization. And I started to talk about that, and then like, oh, just kidding. Tim's actually at a wicked bad disadvantage here because he doesn't have Shadow Ball. So it was just like, they were like not like the end of the world, but it was still just like, man, like I've done more analysis. I want to do more analysis role. Like I was gonna be even like talk to you like, yo, next time we cast together, like, do you want to like switch because I'm feeling more comfortable? And then like those are the two mistakes I made. It was just like those are so.
No.
And it's like those are like the two stupidest mistakes. Like I was just like distraught.
No, I get you. Obviously, it's tough. Like, I think color is so much harder than play by play. Like in most aspects, because like I love play by play. Like it's my favorite thing. I love telling the story. I love being there with the audience and seeing feeding it through our words to their eyes and like them understanding the story. That's my favorite part about commentary. But like good color, like you hear from Aaron, from Aaron and Gabby and like Scott and Jake and Len. Like when I cast finals with Len in Portland, and I'm like hype that like the Dondozo got crit or whatever, and I'm like, oh, this is my job. I get to be excited and get the audience excited for this crit, and then I'm super hype, and then Lennon's like, no, that's actually really bad that he got crit, and I'm like, I never even thought about that, but he's such a fantastic, analytical mind that he's able to express that opinion that I never in a million years would have expressed that if I was in his role in that moment,
I think it's definitely like, because like no matter how much one person wants to be in a certain role, I think everybody's best suited for a certain role. And like obviously like someone like Len is just like amazing at a color role, right? Like there is like a certain level of the game like that you can't quite get to an understanding of unless like you have that background, right? And same thing, like someone who's predominantly maybe color but wanting to do hype analysis, like maybe they can never tell the story like you can, right? So it's like that's one of those things. And I don't know, I feel like I was like playing the game enough that it was like, ooh, like I can make some call, not on a Len or Aaron level, but I'm like, I'm getting better at like deciphering these moments and breaking this down, and I'm starting to see things that I wouldn't as just play by play. Like I'm excited about hopping into this. I think the biggest issue for me is the confidence to say it in case I'm wrong.
Yeah,
so like
that 100%. That's my issue too.
Yeah, like the Rocky Helmet moment. I looked at it and I knew that Peggy won that match, but I was so worried about not making that call in like a, like I half call it. But I should have just stuck to my guns like, no, this is a wrap. There is actually no feasible way for this damage to be done. But it was that confidence because I think when you're not one of like the people that's known for their amazing analysis, you have it in your head that if you mess up, it's just going to be something to further like, oh, well, you should never do this because you're not Aaron, you're not Len, right? And it's like, you know what? I know that I won't be, but like, you don't have to bring that up again, right?
This is all right. You ready for my hot take? That I do think, it's unfortunate that we don't have spectator mode in Scarlet and Violet. I actually think not having spectator mode makes me worse at color commentary, which would be opposite because you say you get to see what one of the players is doing every turn, so you should have more information, and it actually makes me worse. I still feel like the strongest color I ever did was me and you at NASC 2022 and at Worlds, and that was spectator mode. I'm just analyzing the whole board. I'm analyzing all the options the players have to them. But then when I think something's going to happen and we see the bottom player is doing something completely different, my brain shuts down. And I'm like, well, I think he should fake out Tailwind, but he just switched in Amoonguss and Terra Grass or something like that, right? And so it's like, okay, now I'm in panic mode because am I an idiot? Am I missing something that this player is going for that I'm not seeing? And then two, like, should I still express that I think the better play is something he's not doing? Or should I express that what he is I should just analyze what he is doing regardless of if I think it's good or not? So when we had spectator mode, I didn't have any of those worries and I didn't have to be in my own head on mispredicting and saying different information than what was physically in front of me at the time.
Yeah, no, that's super, super valid. It's also then on the same level as like the play by play too. Like this was a conversation that I had when we were like practicing, and even like with my feedback sessions when me and Lou were looking back at matches. It's like when you're trying to be the play by play leading through a hype moment, realistically you already know what one player is gonna do. So you'd like you want to be like hyping up a moment, but at the same time that surprise element's already gone from half of the field
Yeah.
because you got to see what happened. So then it was like, how do you still kind of hype up the moment but having the information, which I think we did a better job of this weekend. I don't know exactly how I've dealt with it in the past, but more so just kind of expressing, okay, well, you can never be surprised, but you can be hype about the consequences it has in the battle. And I think like with the color thing, I mean, I definitely understand being in your old head about it, because when I was looking at things like people were doing, there was definitely like the oh shoot. But I think like maybe like even just breaking down why like both is good, or like why as long as you back up what you're saying with an actual proper like claim to it, I don't think it's ever bad. Like Pokemon's so full of 50/50s, different sort of move things. Like there is of course sometimes there's something that's 100% correct, but when somebody does like a tailwind on the first turn as composed to like some of the Torns that do icy wind on the first turn, it's like a risk versus reward. Obviously, if you get the icy wind up against another Torn, you can then find yourself in the better end of the speed war because you can then prankster tailwind the next turn. But the downside is, and maybe why will they'll go for the safe tailwind that maybe you're calling the icy wind is because they feel threatened, right? So it's like you can still not be wrong. I think it's again having that confidence, and so much easier said than done.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I was surprised that you were on the finals. Like I was happy that you got to do the finals, but like excuse me, especially since you were closing on the stage, I just assumed, oh, European Championship, they'll give it to the duo European cast and Costa and Lee. But like, you know, having you close or do the match and then run over to the stage and do the that seems like, yeah, I was happy for you, but I was surprised when I saw like logged in for juniors and it was Lee and Costa. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting this.
I'm definitely like honored. Like when I'm like saying like, oh, stressful. It's like that's just showbiz, baby. You know, I'm definitely like, because we got to do finals at LASC together. So then I definitely wasn't expecting to be able to get to do Masters finals for EUIC. So I think that was another like area where all the pressure came in, because it was like, oh my goodness, like I just got Masters finals twice. Like that's insane. I've never gotten an IC Masters,
and you've completed
finals.
the Grand Slam, which not many other casters have been able, to do.
Yeah, like
you've worked all four ICs.
Yeah, like this was my first EUIC. LASC was my first Masters, and then they did the run back. So it was like so much like of extra like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do bad because I don't want them to like be like, oh, why did we bring her out? Or like, oh, we shouldn't have trusted her. So it was, it's, it is what it is. But I'm definitely like honored that I got to do it. I obviously feel bad as the NA invader, but at the same time, like none of us are the ones making these decisions. Right. So all I can do is just be grateful and humble about it and just kind of like, okay, like make sure that I'm putting in the work to make it worth it, right? And it was just disappointing when I got to the Masters finals and I know that I had put in the work and I instantly make 2 team sheet errors that I was like, dude, I know I put in the work. Like I know I did. So it's just
I'm sad that you're sad, but I'm also happy that at least how I'm understanding it, LASC finals was better. You know what I mean? So that makes me happier, because I was there for that one. Because that was a banger of a set.
It's different happinesses, because like, they're both hype in different ways. I'm not saying one was better than the other. Like they're both.
You love your finals
fantastic.
Equally.
Yes. So you're not making me pick. You're not making me pick.
That's brutal.
Plus it's like LASC, like that was the first like Masters cast that we got to do for like
that's why you should
and then
pick
it was
me.
and then it was like awesome. But then also EUIC, like when I started getting into commentary, like I'd watch Lou's matches on commentary on how to like actually talk through things. Like, sorry, I didn't do that for you. I did that for Lou. Like she was a huge inspiration, right? So like sorry.
The love for the wifey is stronger
She,
than the love for the podcast host. I see.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It
You
is
know,
what it is. I choose Lou too. I get it. You know, she's the best. She's the goat.
Lou is the best. You know, so, like,
She is fantastic.
she genuinely is the best. So that was like, oh my gosh. And to work with her a whole weekend was just like
I truly think out of all of the casters, like, I would say, you know, this is my own opinion, so nobody kill me for it. I would say in TCG, I think Chip is my favorite caster. I love everybody in TCG. I love Jeremy, and I love Ethan. I love Sablehouse. I love them all equally, but I do think Chip is fantastic. I try to listen to his commentary and see what I can bring over from that game to VG. And then in VG, I would say Lou is the best. I think her use of vocabulary, her sentence structure is just unbelievable. She never trips up over her own words. I trip over myself constantly. Like I have nothing but positive to say. Like, Lou is generally fantastic.
It's like everybody has strengths, and like I look to everybody and like what they're able to deliver in this game. Looking at Lou and like how she talks through things, especially too as someone who stumbles over words, like there was something where like, oh, one Pokemon Terrid, and I throw it to her, and then she's like, oh, it looks like we're having a sparkly surprise to be kicking off our championship Sunday, and I'm like, dude, like I just like
it's not fair. She's so good, like,
dude. She's so it's like time is like half the speed, so she can perfectly like think out how to say things, have all these different things, and it's like how she play by plays with like a little analysis like hidden in is definitely like how I tried to like I loved how she like talked about things, and I wanted to do that, right? So it was like, oh my god, I get to cast with her, and she's so like she's so effortless to cast with. Like there was no, that's why like at LASC was the first time me and Lou got to cast together, and it was such an effortless cast because she does not miss a beat. You know, like it takes so much time for people to find synergy, and Lou's just like, you could literally just be like, there's 4 Pokemon here, and then she'd be like, yes, indeed, there's 4 Pokemon. I'm looking at them all gonna be powerful out here on the field. Like she just like goes, and it's just like, yo, what? Like she's so good. So it was just a good weekend. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, I think I'm willing to make a trade offer here, since you have so much love for Lou, and I have equal amounts of love for Lee. That there's a world, since we are the duos, right? It's the OHKO duo and then the EU duo, Lou and Lee, and then Joe and Sierra. We could do a pick swap. We could do a trade right here. Give me Lee for an event. You get Lou again for an event. I'm down.
It's just when the opportunity comes up, because of course, like the EU and NA, they do their own like regional side events like separately, right? So like that was like the hardest part about going off at EUIC. Like every NA event, it's always sad when it reaches the end, but then it's like there has been some times where it's like I don't even get to say goodbye to everybody, and it's like, you know what? I actually really don't like care. I'm not like too pressed about it, because I literally see them. I'll literally see them next weekend. Like it's literally whatever. Whereas like the EU event, I got to cast once with Lee, and that's the second time in my career I've got to cast with them. The first time being Worlds, actually in London. We did a caster rotation on the first day, and casting with Lee at EUIC, it was like, wow, I actually really enjoy casting with you too. And I don't think like we'll ever actually get this opportunity again for a long time. I think it'll only ever be one-off rotations. And I actually thought me and Lee worked really well together, right? And then it's like, oh,
I think so.
Like I won't get to do this again, right? Like that's the hard part about the EU event. And then like Costa, like his energy was unmatched. The segments he's got, it was like, oh, well, I don't get to work with you either.
Someone's got to take the like caffeine out of his drinks, because he is just crazy.
No, I love
this like Greek British man. I don't know what Costa is. I know it's some type of European mix, but like some of his words are hilarious. Like when he says Ursaluna, I like spit my drink out every time, because he's like Ursaluna. Like he just like is so into expressing the vowels in that. We're like, if you go back and listen to some of the, I love Costa to death. I think he's a fantastic. I've known him for years. I'm happy that he's at this stage. But some of his words, some of his Pokemon phrases, it's just like he's eating those vowels. You know what I mean? Like he is all in on that U in Ursaluna.
I can't say anything as like the one over on the NA event that always gets the slack for how I pronounce things. So like I'm with you on this, Costa. Right? Don't let Joe Brown tell you.
I love Costa. It's
what's
just
up here.
every time he said Ursaluna, I just had to smile. It was just he couldn't eat enough of those U's.
Though it was awesome because like the lounge wasn't too far from the casting area, but like far enough that you wouldn't necessarily hear casting. But like I'd be watching the screen and I could hear Costa from all the way, and I was like, "Oh, there is hype happening! Like, let's go!" Like it was so much fun being backstage and being able to hear that. Like it added to the atmosphere, which is awesome. Charlie, we already said, like, fantastic host, and then Ben SME'd for the event, and like, like he was like instantly like in the Discord at any point, like with always like, okay, well, there's this happening and this and this. Like he was like so like. It's a very selfless job. I know you've done SME quite a lot, but you get absolutely no recognition for what you do. And he was so dedicated to like, this is all the accomplishments and this is what they've been doing and this is what's happened, and constantly feeding us information. Like it was like he did such a good job, and he'll never get that credit. So thank you, Ben. There's that credit now.
And it's smart to have Ben there as an EU caster. Because, like, if you brought an NA caster over and we had so many Europeans every round, you might not have had... The SME might not have been as valuable, right? Because we might not have known those players as intimately as Ben does by being in that region, you know?
Yeah, and, like, he did such a good job. So, yeah, it's, like, the whole thing just, it makes me sad that, like, there isn't more crossover with EU and NA, because I think it would be really funny, like you also get really hype about matches. Like, you and Costa casting around together.
I casted with Costa... that was a funny word to say. Grassroots, like pre-COVID, for like Victory Road events. That was the first time I met him, and like I love Costa to death. He is so much fun to work with.
Yeah, like that would be such a fun casting pair to like. I ate a piece of ice because I thought you were going to talk for longer.
I'm sorry. I'll keep talking. Yap. Yeah,
no. Just but no, away. It would just be like unparalleled hype. So yeah, this is like the official, like, we should build a big island in between EU and NA and hold Pokemon events there so we get everybody coming out from different places. But tis what tis.
Yeah, I think that's it. Unless you have anything else on your banger of a weekend, I think we can get to our question of the week.
Yeah. We don't want to talk about Orlando at all?
I don't know what to say. We didn't prepare predictions. I don't know what's going. We could give a player. How about we don't do the other predictions, but we do a player?
I think like the back-to-back is kind of difficult because it's like we're at the point in the meta right now where looking at Orlando, there's not anything that I'm like want to break down as much as the other events.
Yeah.
I think like
I guess we can like say, is Raging Bolt gonna stay that high? Like 47%'s a lot on a day 2 usage graph. Like obviously Incineroar makes sense at 51, but like, you think Raging Bolt's gonna stay up there in Orlando? Because it did have quite a strong weekend at EUIC. On stream, it was dominating.
I think so. I think players are getting better and better with Raging Bolt, and it's such a strong Pokemon to have. I don't see people necessarily dropping it.
I think it's gonna. I think it's gonna get lower. I don't think 47's really hard to maintain.
I don't know. I definitely think it could. All right, real prediction question: how many Chestnuts in day 2? Because this isn't quite like a straight gimmick team. I believe it was like a Japanese balance team where they added a Chestnut to it, and like they tested it. Like there's actually.
I didn't know it got Grassy Glide. Like when I first was watching the match against Stefan, I was like, "What are we doing here?" And then when I saw it got Grassy Glide, I was like, "Oh, okay,
that's what we're doing." Yeah.
Grassy Glides. I get it.
Yeah. I'm going to say 2 Chestnut in day 2.
I'm going to say none. I'm not a believer. Listen, I put my heart and soul into Articuno, Sierra, and the North American player base let me down in Vancouver. I was all in on the Articuno hype train, and there was none in day 2. Although I did see the article, the VG article for EUIC. It had Incineroar, Raging Bolt, and Articuno as the 3 Pokemon. I was like, yes! No. Those are the 3 heavy hitters of the metagame, you know?
Oh, no. I mean, it was the hype one, so people had to get on it. Our prediction on who wins it all.
Well, I'm pretty sure Brady lives in Florida, right?
Oh, I was going to say Brady!
Yeah, let's go! That's why I go first. Yes, so Brady's on a hype train right now with his second place in Vancouver. So my pick is Brady Smith to win Orlando.
Damn, no, that's such a good pick though. So I was gonna pick him.
You have to worry about something in the future, Sierra. I don't know if you've realized this. I think Joe becomes eligible again for you at NAIC. But if you pick Joe for NAIC, you can't pick him for Worlds.
I feel like there's a full reset for Worlds. Like,
No.
Let's be real.
After Worlds, you could reset because that's a new season.
Oh no, there's so much time between the event. That's for a different. That's for a different time. Oh, I have to think. Man.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of East Coast players, I'm sure, are going, right? It's probably easy to get to.
Yeah.
I can look if you have a player. I can look.
I'm looking through. It's not because there isn't a bunch of awesome players. I just looking at it. I'm just like, yo, Brady's such a smart pick for this. Man.
I gotcha there.
I'm stressing.
Let's see.
You know what?
Who is your Orlando regional? You could go Shiliang. That's a solid pick.
It is a solid pick. Is Ashton going?
Let's see. Ashton. No, I do not see Ashton on this list, at least. I'm not sure. Maybe he'll show up last second, but
I'm looking at what people played for EUIC that potentially be going and like see if I like the team or not. Because I don't think they'd be switching.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of people that I'm like, oh, they're good, but then I'm like, I don't necessarily know if I like the team. Man, this is a tough one.
Is Wolf going? Do we know, or was he just doing EUIC?
I don't know if Wolf's going.
He might go, right? Easy to get to, and he could defend the title.
Yeah, but he also just came off of EUIC.
Carson Confer, that sounds like a good pick.
I'm
trying to help you out. I think Lorcy's going. Kyle Livinghouse is a regional champion.
Yeah, but none of them are from Florida.
Yeah, but you don't have to be from Florida. I mean, James Evans was from Jersey, and he won Vancouver, you know?
I'm gonna say, you know what? I think the Lorcy bet's a good call. I'll say Lorcy. Lorcy has been leveling up like insane. I know he just fell a little short at EUIC, but like I don't think like people quite remember when like they see somebody like drop off from one event to the next, and like still 6-3's like, I know it's not like what we want, but it's still a really strong performance. I forget people remember, like I think I can't talk. It's been a long episode. I think people forget that there's a lot of RNG included in Pokemon as well, whether it's the matchups, whether it's the actual matches themselves. So you have to look at the consistency over a long time, not just take an event or two. And I think Lorcy has. He got 5th at LASE, I think 19th at Knoxville. Like he's been doing good. So yeah, I'm gonna say Lorcy.
Okay. I think that's a fair pick. Obviously, I'll be rooting for Lorcy. I know he's had a rough stretch on stream. His last couple stream matches, he hasn't won, but obviously he's performing well enough to win. So if you guys could like
not stream him, that would be pretty cool.
Till the finals, like, I got you.
Yeah, just so like to make sure that he just goes like undefeated, and then like I don't know where to like you reverse the curse so he wins on stream in the finals. But
well, he'd have to be on in top 4. You can't not have him in top 4.
That's true. So y'all can figure out a way to reverse the bad stream.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll see what I can do.
All right. But actually, if you guys want, like, before anyone's watching, they're like, I don't want to stream Lorcy. No. He's a great person. I just mean in terms of like, the stream luck stuff. All right, guys.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into our question of the week before we close out this EUIC filled episode. This question comes from our Discord, which everybody join the OHKO Discord if you want to be included in a future question of the week, or talk to our fun friends that we have there in the Discord. But this is from Flame G, and he's asked, do you think best of 5 finals would ever happen? or is best of 3 too entrenched in Pokemon? I'm new. Please inform me if they did this years ago and everybody hated it. Well, Flame G, we have great news for you. They did, in fact, do this years ago and everybody hated it.
Yeah, not only just best of 5, but I remember for Players Cup 4, it wasn't a best of 5, but we did have a bracket reset because we had a upper bracket and a lower bracket. And there was a bracket reset which ended up having 5 games played out in finals. And oh my gosh, was it dreadful. First, like, I think for best of 5 to really be good, I'm speaking purely from like a spectator end of it. But I think a big issue is that there is games of Pokemon that can be one-sided or like kind of like luck dependent. And if you're all of a sudden just adding more games, it doesn't make it more interesting or even better. It just lets somebody get demolished more on one side. And with this best of 3, the bracket reset in particular, it was then 5 games in a row of a Galarian, Moltres, Landorus, Mirror, where the Landorus had to Dynamax first turn for the max airstream, or else you lost the Speed War. And if you did any other plan, you were cooked. And me and Dawes had to stream 5 of those back to back. And it was just nothing going on. It wasn't fun to watch, I'm sure, for the players. It was not fun to play. And best of 5 for grand finals, I think, could be very much so like that. I'd be intrigued if only a grand final situation, if players would maybe feel a little bit more strongly about now current days of Pokemon, if they would like that. But just from like the limited experiences I have with something that did have a lot of matches, it just wasn't fun.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about this. Yeah, I had a lot to say
Right.
at the time as well. So, what had happened was we were during COVID, right? Players Cup, they had the Invitational first time around with different world champions and stuff, and then they did a Players Cup 1 open. Everybody could qualify for different regions and stuff. We ended up having 4 of those style Players Cup, and I believe like every time the rules somewhat changed a little bit for all of the Players Cups. The person in charge at the time came from a fighting game background. So obviously in fighting games, winners brackets, losers brackets, bracket resets, like these are things that are much more ingrained into the fighting game culture than the Pokemon culture, right? So I think that was one of the initial clashes we had with the Players Cup, was trying to make it more fighting game-esque. And I think it didn't work out well. For example, in many fighting games, you'll have the open bracket rounds, the first couple rounds of the game. Like when I went to that Street Fighter event a couple weeks ago, it's best of 3. It's first person wins 2, then you move on to the next round. If you lose, you go to the losers bracket. That losers bracket round 2 or whatever is also best of 3, all the way up to like winners finals, losers finals, and grand finals or something. Then it becomes best of 5. So they really wanted to implement that fighting game style best of 5 into Pokemon. But best of 5 Pokemon does not work as well as best of 5 fighting games, because in fighting games you have many different ways to, like, you could poke with a medium punch or a light kick or whatever. These are terms if you don't know fighting games. Like, you have many different ways to do damage and do combos and to get your route to victory in a fighting game. If you're Ken versus Ryu, right? You got a million different ways to win, to get their health bar down. In Pokemon, especially in a very centralized format, which we had at the time when, for example, when Wolf won the Players Cup with the the other one, Colossal. G-Max Volcalith, a very centralized mechanic where the entire meta was warped around it. You did not have many ways to win, so you had to just have 5 straight matches of, does he fake out, does he Aqua Jet, does he Dynamax, does he not Dynamax? And I believe when Wolf won Players Cup 2, I believe that whole set, because there was a bracket reset, was 14 matches long or something, or 13 matches. I forget what it was. It was crazy long. I forget the casters that casted that, but I felt so bad for whoever casted the finals. And then you ask, okay, maybe it doesn't work in VGC, because like, if your only chance of winning is getting the Volcalith, attack off, or what if it's a damage roll? Okay, this time you did get the damage roll, but this time you didn't get it, right? And then you're like, oh, what about TCG? Because we had the same systems for TCG and VGC Players Cup. I watched the Players Cup, I want to say 2 or 3, whichever one it was. I think it was 2, where Chip and someone else were casting finals. And it was Urshifu, Rapid Strike maybe, I forget. One of the fighting Urshifus in the TCG versus Pikarom. and electric types or lightning types are weak to fighting in the TCG. I watched 6 consecutive unwinnable matches for the Pikarom player in finals because they were on the winner side of the finals bracket. So literally, poor Chip and the other casters, I'm gonna say, was it Jeremy? It might have been Jeremy. I can't remember who Chip was with. But those 2 casters had to watch 6 auto losses in a row to know what we would have known after 2 matches in a normal system. You know what I mean? So yeah, Pokemon is not a field that I don't think extra games makes it more exciting, because I think extra games just adds time. Like, yes, I know we have these showcase matches here. I don't know if you've seen those on Twitter, where you have like Isaiah Bradner and a Giratina deck versus who do you play? He played someone else with like a Gardevoir deck, and that was like a best of 7 instead of a best of 3. Like, so I think if you're doing a showcase match, that's fine. But like for the tournament structure, it's too much time. The game is not varied enough, and the game is also too varied because it's too RNG reliant. Like at the same time, all in all, that my rant is over. It best of 5. I am adamantly against in Pokemon. It's really not as entertaining as you would think, coming from League of Legends or other games.
I do think one thing is that both of our experiences do stem from Players Cup, with a lower bracket and a winner's bracket with a reset that we don't have in our regionals and stuff.
Right.
So I will admit that well, I can't speak for you, but my experience with it is very different than maybe how it would work at a regional. I think even though you would think with more games going on, it'd be more consistent, I actually think that there's then more opportunities. Like, there's so much RNG with Pokemon.
100%.
I think that it could then get kind of messy. Like, I feel like for the amount of times after a game 3 in a finals, if there was something that was RNG dependent, it feels bad. But I don't think that actually feels better if it's a best of 5, right? Like, I think it was the one final where there's Wolf was there and there ended up being a freeze or something that was pivotal. And it's
his Lando got crit frozen.
Yeah.
In game 3, against Riley.
And then it's okay, so you lose that, you then have to play another match. It doesn't feel better, in my opinion. If the players think the RNG actually evens out more to where they think best of 5 would be beneficial, I'd be willing to hear it a little bit more. But I just offhand, even the difference with the fighting games is there's so many different things you can do to leads. In Pokemon, there's only a very few optimal things you can do for a lead. I think with a couple of back and forth sets, I'd be really intrigued to see how they'd play out in a best of 5. Wolf versus Nicholas, example, the Charlotte rematch. I think that would be interesting. But EUIC, for example, that wouldn't have been a good best of 5 because, I mean, Nils was just always a step ahead, and then all of a sudden you're just making Tim play a third game of Nils being always ahead. It's just, when I look at it, I just don't really think there's enough situations to where it's beneficial, and I think it would just feel bad more than anything.
What I would love to see the numbers on, I'm not enough of a nerd to do it, but take Smash Brother events, take Street Fighter, take Guilty Gear, take League of Legends, take CSGO, take things that are best of 5 finals, and see how many times the team or the player that has won the first 3 games, so is at a 2-1 count, or if it was 3-0, they won the best of 5, but how many times the team that was leading 2-1 after 3 games ended up losing the best of 5, right? Because that's the argument for best of 5, is that you have more time, so you have more chances for the other person to come back than in a best of 3. And what I think is, if we ran that same system, I think it happens more in fighting games, not sure about in League, but that in fighting games, certainly the person that is losing through the first 3 games ends up winning the set. I would have to say happens more often than it would in Pokemon. I would argue that in Pokemon, if we had 100 matches where we had 100 of the best players in the world all doing best of 5 sets, and we tracked the records after game 3 to the records at game 5, I would very much argue that the person that was winning after game 3 is also going to be winning after game 5.
Yeah, I definitely think, just because the type of game Pokemon is, because it's already, if in something like League, it's going to be the same team more often. You have to remember, in things like League and Valorant, League there's draft, Valorant, you don't play the same map in a series. You actually
Right.
have a map pick ban system. You always play a different map, which then also then you're then playing different agents, different characters. So each one of these is actually very, very different. You could argue, oh, well, in a Pokemon game, you can be leading different things. Again, there's only certain things that you can lead to where it still is optimal. Beyond that, it's then not optimal anymore. So I just don't think there's enough variance in what is optimal in Pokemon to where like you would see very differing results in a long term in comparison to Valorant, where it might be even more back and forth.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement. It's a cool idea. You know, everybody thinks about how we can improve the circuit and how we can improve the game, and it's something that always comes up in conversation. But like, we saw it in practice, and it's very format dependent and very, you know, there's just too many variables to it that makes it like, also the time factor too, right? You're gonna have another 40 minutes of games that you don't need to have. And so in TCG, could you imagine? Oh my God, could you imagine if finals in TCG was best of 5? Oh my God. Thankfully that was like Players Cup was on TCG online, right? It wasn't.
TCGO.
Yeah, so like you could play quickly on TCGO. You can't play 5 games of Pokemon trading card game in paper well, you need a 3-hour timer or something.
Yeah, that wouldn't be very fun. So yeah, would love to hear different opinions about the best of 5, but I think we're pretty aligned on this. Anything else we have to discuss? I know that you have Orlando to prep for, aka you have One Piece to play.
Yeah, basically right now. No, I think we're good. If you are in Orlando, you know, want to say hi. I've ran into, you know, we talked about I ran into fans in Vancouver. Like I was at Tim Hortons and I ran into a couple fans of the podcast. I ran into guys in the bathroom that are fans of the podcast. Maybe wait till I'm out of the bathroom to tell me it. But if you see me this weekend and you're a fan of OHKO, you know, maybe we take a photo. We tag Sierra because she's missing out on all the fun, you know?
Yeah, but if anyone is at home and is just watching, I'm not 100% committed on it yet because I do have to see how my schedule is. I do think that I'm going to be co-streaming the entire regionals on my own Twitch. Twitch.tv/Sierra Dawn keeps it nice and easy. But yeah, I'll probably do like VGC matches in between because I'm not vamping for that long for free. But yeah, I think that I'll be like watching through that. So yeah, come join if you want to say hi.
Oh, that's news to me. I didn't know. I'm excited. Now I'll tune in. I'll stop hosting just to watch your co-stream.
Yeah, right. You're just like, I could watch the casters in real time, or I could watch Sierra react to the casters with a 3-minute delay.
Exactly.
Perfect. But hey, I know this has been a long episode. If you have made it to this point of OHKO, thank you so much for listening. Again, if you're not part of the Discord, you can join. The description has the link. But regardless, thank you so much for listening. If you're going to Orlando, safe travels, and we'll see you next time.